I'm going to walk you through the ER to inpatient workflow. The first thing you need to do on a patient that you're going to admit is place the patient status order, the PSO order. So you're going to go to your orders. We're going to add an order. And you're going to search for PSO, for patient status order. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to click on that. I'm going to hit done, and I'm going to admit my patient. I got this blue circle with the white X, meaning there's more info that I need to fill out. So I'm going to hit right click and I'm going to select modify. And I'm going to admit this patient to ICU. So medical service is going to be ICU. Level of service is going to be ICU. My anticipated length of stay, since this is an inpatient, is going to be 2 midnights or more. If I want to admit this patient to med-surg, it would be a medical service type. And my level of service or my accommodation would be semi-private if they're going to be sharing a room, or private if they're isolation or CDC. So I'm going to admit this patient to semi-private, 2 midnights or more. And then you'll go ahead and you'll either initiate now, and then you're going to go ahead and you're going to initiate now. Orders for signature, and you're going to sign that admission order. So you always need to place this patient status order first before you place your actual admission orders. This moves the patient to an inpatient status. So my next step is to add my actual medication, lab, radiology orders. So I'm going to look for my general admission order set. I'm going to go ahead and select that. I'm going to fill out my resuscitation status because that's a required element of this order set. So I'm going to select full code. You're going to go through and you're going to order whatever admission orders you want on this order set. So let me just go ahead and select a couple things. And at the very bottom of this order set, I can return to the general med admission order set. Because as you can see, I went into this skin and soft tissue order set. So I'm going to continue to finish up adding my orders. And now I can either initiate now, which is going to start all those orders now, or I can plan for later, which will allow the admitting nurse to initiate those when the patient gets to the floor. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to plan these orders for later. If I wanted to add meds that aren't on this order set to this patient, I can always click here, add to phase, add order, and I can order a one-off order on this patient. So if I want to order hydromorphone, I can go ahead and do that. It's going to add it to my order, where I can also, like I was saying, if I'm done with my admission orders, I can just plan for later so that the nurse admitting the patient can initiate those. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit sign. And my admission orders have all been signed and are now in a planned state. So when the patient hits med-surg, that admitting nurse can go ahead and initiate those orders, and those orders will start. If I wanted the orders to start right away while the patient was in the emergency room, I would initiate now, and those tasks would drop onto the ER nurse to complete. So after you've done your PSO order and your general admission orders, you're going to do your medication reconciliation, your admission medication reconciliation. So you're going to go to the provider view. We're going to go to the patient's home medications, and we're going to select admission up here at the top to do your admission medication reconciliation. So I recommend doing this after you place your general admission orders, just because it's going to give you a picture of the patient's home meds against any of the medications that you ordered. So the next step after you've planned your orders is to do your admission medication reconciliation. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click provider view. I'm going to go to home meds and I'm going to go to the admission. Because my orders are all in a planned state, they're not going to show on the admission medication reconciliation. But if I had initiated them now, those items would all show here. So if I want to continue these two medications while the patient's in-house, I can hit under this green triangle that I wish to continue those medications. If I don't want to continue one of them, I can go ahead and I can check box under this red square to say that I don't want the patient to continue on that medication. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to, I can either, again, plan the orders so that the nurse can initiate them when the patient hits the floor, or I can sign those orders to make them start now. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select plan. And those orders are now in a planned state. And you can see I get this green checkbox where the admission is to show that that admission medication reconciliation has been complete. So after I finish the admission medication reconciliation, I'm going to go ahead and document my HMP. So as you can see here on the right-hand side of the screen are my documentation boxes. I can either type or drag and dictate into these boxes. So I'm going to go ahead and document the HMP on this patient. And even while I'm documenting, I can be toggling through the patient's chart, and this information that I'm typing in here or dictating into these boxes is going to stay with the patient. So for example, if I want to go back to orders and I want to view orders, when I go back to this provider view to where my documentation is, it's still going to be living here. If I log out before I've created my note and I log back in, this documentation is going to stay here. So it's important that, when you're ready to create your note that you create it, because otherwise if you log out, you go home and you don't actually create the note, there's not going to be a note charted on this patient. So I went ahead and I documented in the HPI field, review of system, physical exam, and my assessment and plan. And what I need to do is under this acute tab on this gray menu bar at the very bottom, you're going to see the different options of creating a note. So I can create an admission HMP, a progress note, or a consult note. But in this particular patient's case, I'm going to create the admission HMP. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And it's going to populate what I just filled out in addition to pulling items from the chart. So from here, I can still modify my note, add anything that I want to add. And once I've finished and I'm done with my note and I want to save it, I'm going to sign and submit. I can forward this note to other providers. I'm not going to forward one at this point, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select sign. And that's going to sign the note and finalize it in the patient's chart. So if I go to, I'm going to go ahead and refresh my screen. If I go to documents, I will see my completed HMP. So the 4 steps for doing an ER to inpatient workflow is number 1, placing the patient status order so that that patient will become an inpatient and signing that, and then placing your general admission orders, doing your admission medication reconciliation, and then doing your HMP. So completing, signing your HMP.